Like, I am such a pyro because I love the smell of burning things. Hey y'all, I'm Drake and this is Drake Makes Art. It's time for Artvatar week 3, Fire. So this week I'm going to be delving into a craft that's really common here on YouTube, but I've never personally done myself. Actually, I take that back. I have done this before. I did it in high school for a thing, but that was like over a decade ago. So really not quite over a decade. I think I'll be a decade next year. Anyway, I'm old. This week I'm going to be wood burning, or as it's known in professional circles, pyrography. I've never heard it called that in real life, but when you start researching wood burning, that's apparently like what the artists call themselves, is pyrographers. It's just a fancy word that means fire writing. Pyro meaning fire, graph meaning write. If you've been following the trend of these last few videos, you could probably guess who I'm going to be immortalizing in this week's piece. It's everyone's favorite angsty teenager, Prince Zuko of the Fire Nation. So let's get started. You know, working with the fire pen was very different than working with a normal pen. It has different nibs that can all do different things. And I started by using what's actually called the shader tip for my line work because it had a very thin pointy tip at the end of it, which I thought would help me get good clean lines. It did do its job pretty well, but I realized very quickly that like my skill with the pen was necessary and useful, but really working with the wood was a lot harder than I expected. The wood has grain, which has to do with, you know, there's a natural way that all of the fibers in the wood are packed together and grew together in the tree. And trying to draw lines with the grain was a lot easier than trying to draw lines across the grain. And so trying to find the best way to orient the wood so that I can draw the lines using strong downstrokes, because upstrokes are just not the way to do it, and also work with the grain as best as possible. That was a challenge I had not expected when I started this project. After I finished the line work, I switched to the actual shading, and to do shading, I actually took the shader tip off and put on what's called the cone tip. So named because it's shaped like a little cone at the end. It comes to a point. I started by doing the darkest areas of the image, which I decided would be Zuko's hair, with a technique called stippling, which is where you just burn dots into that area, and the dots kind of run together and burn to create the dark space. This technique is also used in tattooing and in some pen mediums, like a lot of comic books will sometimes use stippling if they're not using cross-hatching. But after I did the stippling, I decided I didn't like the texture it was giving Zuko's hair. Zuko's hair isn't supposed to be curly, it's very straight and flat. And the stippling texture kind of made it look like the waves that curls will give in hair, if you've ever seen like very tightly curled hair or like African American hair. So I decided to kind of try and go back and smooth those out as best I could to get rid of that texture and kind of give it more of that flat shading vibe. And when I realized that that technique worked, I went back and did the smooth shading over Zuko's burn scar. You know, his infamous burn scar that he was given by his father, and that kind of marked him throughout the entire series. I think I might have been a little bit too zealous in my shading because I think part of the pen that wasn't the tip must have scraped against the wood because it burned this strange little line into his face, which is unfortunate, but you know, at this point it is what it is. The bad thing about working with fire is that you can't take it back, as Zhang Zhang told us. And so here is the final result. As you can see, it's all right. It's not great. I'm okay with it to be like the first try. I definitely want to try this again in the future. Also, it smells really good. Like, I'm such a pyro because I love the smell of burning things. But it's like, I need a candle that just smells like burning wood. Like, just straight up campfire smell. That is what I need. It smells so good. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this video. If you feel like I've earned it, I hope you'll subscribe to see more content like this, and don't be afraid to give it a like if you liked this video. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time when we make something new. Bye.